Welcome to the In Factor, conversations with entrepreneurs who have started, stumbled, and succeeded. I'm Rebecca White, and today I'm really excited to welcome back Kevin Harrington. Kevin was one of the original Sharks and also a founder of As Seen on TV. And one of the things I love about Kevin is he grew up in a town I lived in many years, Cincinnati. And so we have that Midwestern roots and work ethic. And, we're just two entrepreneurs who just don't know when to stop. So love having you here with me. Thank you for joining me, Kevin.
Thank you, Rebecca. And you said that this is for entrepreneurs who have started and stumbled and then turned it around. Hey, I qualify for all of those. So
Yeah.
stumbling is part of being an entrepreneur, right?
Yeah, that's it. That's it, Kevin. And I think that's the point, and I think it's so helpful to anybody who's just in those early phases to understand that when they do stumble, there's still hope for them after that.
Absolutely. I know we got a lot of good stuff to talk about, but I learned early on because I was launching. You mentioned products and selling. I was in the As Seen on TV business. I owned As Seen on TV Inc. and As Seen on TV.com, and we would launch. At one time, we were launching 50 plus products every year. That was one a week.
Wow.
So we had to do the tooling, the manufacturing, the inventory, the commercial. We had to shoot the infomercial. Then we had to buy the media. So we had all of these activities happening for one project on the average every single week we had a launch. But we failed more often than we succeeded. And people say, but wait a minute, how does that work? Well, when you think about it, in the world of baseball, if you get a hit 1 out of 3 times, you're one of the best baseball players that ever played baseball. Okay, 333% average. We were about a 1 out of 3 producer of winners, and which meant we failed 2 out of 3 times. But Winston Churchill, he had a great saying, and I adopted this early on, and that success is being able to go from failure to failure without the loss of enthusiasm. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because you have to know that you're not always going to succeed. Learn from those failures and maybe try to fail fast and cheap so that you don't waste lots of time on something that's going to fail, right?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
kind of get a minimal viable product that you can get so that you can test it early. And then I say fail fast, fail cheap. If it's not working, then move on to the next one, right?
Yeah. That's such great advice. I think he also said failure isn't fatal. And I think you're a perfect example of that. And I think the other thing about that story that you just told, which is so encouraging, is that there is there is an underlying model that you can apply over and over again, because obviously doing it so many times, it's just like batting, right? There's
Right.
practice involved.
Exactly.
And you can improve over time. And so I think that's one of the things that you and I, who've been around doing these things for a while, can share with people who are starting, some of the lessons we've learned along the way.
Yeah, we put a model together. We would have like 10 or 15 stations that we would run each project through, that we would read like it was like science for us almost, right? If they did well on these certain stations, we tested different day parts. So we would have a weekday, we would have weekend, we would have late night, we'd have during the day, we'd have early morning. So we had this test pattern of stations, time slots, day slots, and then we would run 15 or 20 airings of a new product, and then we would read it like a book. We'd read it scientifically, and then we could go back and see, okay, this is what we need to do to improve, to make this a better performer in terms of its customer acquisition cost, et cetera. But anyway, we had a lot of fun doing this for many years, and I'm just wondering, do you want me maybe to share how I got started in this?
Yes,
Business,
let's do, because
Rebecca? Maybe
I
we
was
kind of
just going to
step
go
back a
there,
little bit.
actually. Yeah,
Yeah.
because you did a lot of things with TV, and now we're in the digital age. So let's talk about how you got to where you are now, and then we can dig into some of the
Yeah.
digital marketing
So,
tools.
I'm fortunate. I'm one of six kids, grew up in Cincinnati, Ohio. My father was an entrepreneur and he owned restaurants and bars. And so one day, my father, I started working in his places when I was young, and I was 11 years old, and I was, bar backing and cleaning tables and washing dishes. And then one day I said, Dad, but when am I going to make real money? This is like, I'm working hard and not a lot to show for it. And he said, you need to start your own business. So he mentored me, and I believe everyone should have mentors in their life. I've had awesome ones. My dad was my first, but I went out. I got Zig Ziglar as a mentor, who's a very famous motivational speaker. And I also was able to connect with Richard Branson to get a mentor. And these folks helped me. But the bottom line is, as a young entrepreneur, I was filling the downtime of these cable networks that were Discovery Channel was 18 hours a day. I owned the other 6 hours, and I was putting on products. And again, Billy Mays, Jack LaLanne, the Juicer, George Foreman, fitness, beauty, golf, you name it. We were featuring all these different categories. And so then as the television business changed, and you mentioned it, Rebecca, what was happening? People, like kids, would come home from school and they weren't turning the TV on. They were going to their computer. They were playing on TikTok and Facebook and Instagram. This digital world changed everything. And so 10 years ago, I saw the handwriting on the wall, because we used to have this huge success with products, but all of a sudden they were going like this. Very quickly, I say that they were a bell-shaped curve. Instead of just continuing to be successful, they would hit and then die. And oh my goodness, we got to find the next one and the next one and the next one. But what happened, this is because television viewership was plummeting, and people weren't coming home and turning their TV sets on and watching our shows. And so bottom line is, I saw that TV was becoming difficult, and I own As Seen on TV. So I decided, what do I do? Know when to hold them, know when to fold them. I sold it. Okay. So 10 years ago, I sold all of my As Seen on TV assets, AsSeenOnTV.com, As Seen on TV Inc. And I started in the digital space, and we started doing all of our product launches shorter form and using funnels, click funnels, and using a whole different approach. And this is something that that we can share with the folks that are listening right now, some of these learning curves that we went through, because Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, they've got hundreds of millions, billions of people following, and now a new way to get to these consumers. So this became our mission, and we've had a tremendous transition over to a digital marketing company, away from a As Seen on TV company. And I'm going to give you one really good example of how well this worked. So, and I love this product. I drink one every day. It's a product called Celsius. And this is a company that, it's an energy drink. And so if you're going to sell this product in the marketplace, it's heavy. It's not easy to ship. This is not an infomercial product. Okay. What we created, though, was something unique in the market, and it involved digital, and it involved influencers. It involved things that 10 years ago you didn't have. And so when 10 years ago, if we wanted to launch a product, yes, we were still just finishing the As Seen on TV side of our business, but now we were able to use influencers, and we were able to have influencers sending people to Amazon. And now our Amazon sales just were taking off like crazy. This company was number 9 on Amazon in the energy category, until we had thousands of influencers sending people to Amazon. And what happened? Celsius went from number 9 to number 5 to number 3 to number 2,
Wow.
ahead of Red Bull. And so the company, accordingly, their stock started taking off also. This company grew. It's now, they 10 years ago, it was a startup. It's now an $11 billion company because they've utilized the latest and greatest of digital marketing, including influencer marketing. So we never spent one dime on television. It was not an as seen on TV company or an as seen on TV product. It's a product that goes into the retail stores, sits on the shelves. But the influencers were helping move it off the shelf. The influencer replaced the TV. And that is why there's a whole new way to market products, and why we have found this, as you mentioned, digital marketing is one of the cool new things that people need to understand in a big way.
Yeah, yeah. Well, so much in there that I'd love to dig out and talk about. And I'm not sure exactly where to start, but I have to go back to your comments about finding mentors, because you mentioned two big names, Zig Ziglar, and some of the younger listeners may or may not know Zig Ziglar, but a really influential person who taught the world probably how to sell, if you wanted to give somebody credit for it.
Yeah.
And Richard Branson, Sir Richard Branson, which I'm sure most of our listeners have heard about. How did you go about getting mentors with names like that, big names that were game-changing names?
Yeah.
And what do you recommend to maybe the young student listening who'd like to find a mentor?
Yeah. So that's a good question, because when I first was trying to get to Richard Branson, it's very difficult that you can't just like find who is his assistant, and I'm going to get a hold of that person and they'll connect me, right? Generally, no. Okay, that's not how, because an assistant to Richard Branson, their job is to keep you away from Richard Branson. Okay, right. Literally. Now, what I found out though is that he's a very generous man. He has lots of charities, and so I found out that he was hosting an event at his island in Necker Island down in the Caribbean, and if I was willing to make a small donation to his charity, I could get an invite. And so, wow, that was an awesome, and I'm not talking about tens of thousands of dollars. I'm talking about less than 10,000, thousands, couple $1,000s, literally. Okay. And so, to have access to one of the smartest minds in the entrepreneurial world. And let me tell you what Richard Branson said to me, because he said, Kevin, I've been following you and watching you in this as seen on TV business and all the great things you've done there. But he said, you've really missed the boat. And I'm like, well, tell me what you're talking about, Richard. I thought we did a good job of all these products and all these years. He says, no, he said, but those products have a bell-shaped curve, right? Just like you saw TV, television viewership has plummeted. So your products are going to die. Well, but you never built your own brand to continue yourself in the marketplace. You built Tony Little's brand, Jack LaLanne's brand, Billy May's brand, all these other brands, but you never built your own brand. And so it hit me square in the eyes. And I'm like, wow, I'm really getting my money's worth here, because Richard Branson said, go home, write some books, create some content. And that ultimately, I mean, here's one of my books. And this was a book that I wrote that I created podcast. I did 185 podcasts when this book first launched, Rebecca, to promote it to the marketplace. And of course, that gave me an opportunity to be on so many amazing podcasts. Adam Carolla, the Love Doctor, I was on his twice. We went to number 2 on the Wall Street Journal bestseller list. So what was I doing? I was following mentors' advice of creating branding for me, raising my profile, building my brand, writing books, speaking on stages, and doing the things that entrepreneurs should be doing to get more clients. So yes, these mentors helped me tremendously, and because there were shifts in the marketplace, and I didn't realize that, hey, the old as seen on TV was going to be gone, and now something new. And I had to jump in and get involved in that digital side, as you mentioned. And I'm glad I did, because I got in at the right time, actually.
Yeah, yeah. That's really insightful. And I'd like to just kind of dig in on that a little bit, because it's really interesting to me. You have launched literally thousands of products, and you've made money on these products, but you were hearing from Sir Richard Branson that you needed to build your own brand.
Right.
And so would you recommend that any startup, regardless of what, any entrepreneur who's starting a business, even if they're not building, the typical business where you would think about becoming a brand and an influencer, like, if you were, obviously, if you're doing training, or if you're doing online courses or things like that, you
Yeah.
would need a brand. But do you think building a personal brand is important regardless of what you're doing as a startup?
I do, and let me tell you why. Because so let's say you're in. I mean, one of the advantages that I had as a marketer, I was involved in pretty much every product category. We were in housewares, hardware, fitness, beauty, golf, toys, etc. So most people, if they have a business, they maybe you're in the houseware category, okay, but this is the thing. The houseware category, they have trade shows, and they have 4, 5, 6, 8, 10 of these a year, maybe. It's oftentimes a big one somewhere, but then they have regional ones, and they always need speakers. They need people that are in the industry to get up on stage and share their wisdom with the folks in their industry. And so I used to go to 35 trade shows, and Richard Branson said, well, that's great. You'd go to the show, so you pay your own airfare, you pay your own hotel, and you go to the show and you walk the show. Great. Let me give you a better way to do it, Kevin. He said, you tell the folks at the show that you're willing to share your wisdom on how you generated billions of dollars in sales of products, and you're going to be willing to speak to the folks there. Now, when you're willing to speak, things change. Number one, you'll get a small fee. Number two, they'll pay for your airfare and your hotel. And now when you walk the show, people are going to say, hey, there's that guy that's speaking, and I want to listen to him. And they're going to be contacting you down the road. So, the other thing that I did when I started speaking is I said, I will speak, but I do want one thing. You're sending out emails to everyone coming to the show. I want you to include my name and my bio in those emails at least 4 times that go to all the people that are attending. So what were they doing? They were helping build my brand in that houseware category when I first started doing this, because Rebecca, I went 35 out of 37 years to the houseware show. It was the last 7 years that I spoke at all of the shows, because they wanted me to be there. And then the hardware show guys wanted me, and then the golf show. Last 2 weeks ago in Orlando, Florida, at the PGA golf show, I was center floor with David Ledbetter. He and I, what were we doing? Taking pitches on the floor of the PGA golf show. We called it the Golf Pitch Challenge. It was like a Shark Tank for golf products, and we were investing in products. And this was the talk of the PGA golf show. Everywhere we went, people were like, hey, there's those guys that are taking all these new products and making it happen. So we utilized lots of brand building at that show for sure. So any industry you're in, yes, get out there, build your brand, get on stages, write books, do podcasts, all the things we're talking about right here, right now, today.
Yeah, yeah. It's you can't pay for advertising that good, right?
No,
You
no,
can't buy it.
you can't. I mean, to get it a 1 hour presentation, and nowadays they may have a couple thousand people at the event listening, but then they might have 10,000 people that didn't come that are still listening to the speakers from their computers at home, because a lot of people today, trade shows are different. You got about half of the people that don't even come to the shows anymore.
Yeah, yeah. It's really interesting. I think, and it works regardless of the field you're in. I think you might remember that I started a technology company with formerly in Cincinnati with a partner there, and we became the experts in campus safety. And we would speak at campus safety events because that was our focus: risk mitigation in higher
Mm.
education. And I remember talking with a guy that built a very successful pharmaceutical company. And he said their strategy was to become the trusted experts in their space, which was attention deficit disorder. And they were launching a little known product called Adderall, which I'm sure you've heard of. And
Yes,
that was their whole strategy. So I think it works everywhere. And you've given a perfect example of that. So, and it's something that I think a lot of entrepreneurs don't think about when they're launching their business, to become an expert in that space. So,
exactly.
yeah. So let's dig in a little bit more to this whole digital marketing thing. I know a few weeks ago, I reached out to you about crowdfunding, and
Hmm.
crowdfunding as a way not just to raise money, but as a way to launch products. And you referred me to a very bright young man, Brandon Adams, and he
Yes.
came and spoke to my students. But I'm curious, for our listeners, have you seen crowdfunding as a useful technique for launching new products? And if so, do you have any thoughts on that you'd like
Yes.
to share?
You know what? The first thing I want to say regarding crowdfunding is when I first heard about crowdfunding, I said, this is an awesome opportunity for entrepreneurs to raise money. I mean, when I was a young entrepreneur, Rebecca, I'll never forget, I went into the bank and I'd asked my father-in-law, who was successful, and I needed some help. I said, look, I need some capital to grow my business. And he said, oh yeah, just here's the name of the bank I deal with. Go on in and talk to this guy, and he'll do whatever he can for you, because I've been a great customer there. So I go in, and I said, hey, I need a line of credit. I need like $1 million to help expand my business. And he said, oh, okay. So he gives me paperwork and stuff. And, so I'm listening to him, and I'm like, wow, this is going pretty good. I said, my father-in-law must be really connected here, because, they haven't asked me that question I'm waiting for, is like, do I have any collateral or whatever? Right. So make
Right.
a long story short, I'm assuming that they're going forward. And he's like, look, he says, so fill out all this paperwork. And as I'm walking out the door, he's kind of like, we'll get this $1 million line wrapped up. He said, just one question that I have, what vehicle will you be using to secure that loan? And I said, what do you mean? He said, well, we got to have either cash or equity in the bank here against that loan, because we can't loan in an unsecured fashion. And he said, but there's one other issue, because you guys deal all over the world. You're dealing in Europe and these different currencies. We actually, if we're going to loan you $1 million, we need 1.2 million in cash in the bank to loan against it, because of the chances that these currencies might change and go negative in the wrong way. So we need an extra 20% to cover your loan. So I'm like, oh, thank you. I don't think we'll be executing the paperwork, because I don't have the $1.2 million in cash to give you, so that you can give me $1 million back.
That was a time when the only time you could get money was when you didn't need it, right?
Exactly. So nowadays, with crowdfunding, wow, what an opportunity. So one of the key things with crowdfunding, though, is people don't understand that, they think, oh, I'm going to go on Kickstarter or one of these crowdfunding sites, and I'm just going to put it up, and everyone's going to find it. And before you know it, I'm going to have tens of thousands, then hundreds of thousands, maybe millions there, right? Well, no, you need to market that crowdfunding opportunity. And so you almost need a mini infomercial, because you need to shoot videos. You need to solve a problem. You need to, if your business solves a problem, then I want to hear about the problem you're solving. I want to hear how you're solving it uniquely. And I want to see a video on this on your crowdfunding site so that I can understand what the opportunity is all about. And now I can listen to the video, maybe see some testimonials, some magical transformations. But the bottom line is that I get a chance to see exactly what the opportunity is with this crowdfunding site, because it's a website, it's videos, it's user testimonials, etc. And if you do it right, and now you have to, when you're doing crowdfunding, you need to spend a little bit of money on ads to get to some potential investors. And so think about it this way, Rebecca. Let's say you spent $1,000 on ads for your crowdfunding site, and then $10,000 came in crowdfunding. So now you've got a net of 9,000 plus. Well, go spend another 1,000 and bring in another 10 and see if you can keep making that work. And that's, you might be spending 2,000 to bring in 10. But the bottom line is that there should be a formula of money spent for investors for the ads, and then money raised on a direct return. It's sort of like, what's the customer acquisition cost, right? So what is the acquisition cost to get somebody to write a check for $10,000 in crowdfunding? It might cost you $1,000, it might cost you $2,000, but you don't want to spend too much money because you got to have a net effect of a net amount of money left so you can capitalize on the money and go spend it to build your business, right? But be careful, because you don't want to get a situation where you're spending, if you're spending $8,000 to get $10,000, that those numbers aren't going to work because you're spending way too much to get very little left. So, you need to make that formula work. But crowdfunding is awesome. If you tell a good story, you have a unique product, you position it the right way. There's one other thing that I add, and we've talked about it here. You mentioned the word mentor, and that Kevin, that I had some great mentors in my life. I like to see a good advisory board on crowdfunding sites. In other words, yes, think about this, Rebecca. If you see a site that a product, a business that you're thinking it makes sense to maybe throw $1,000 or 10,000 or 500 or whatever the number is you want to invest in that crowdfunding site, but you want to see, wait a minute, who's behind this? Who are the people behind it? And because, I will tell you that there are some people doing crowdfunding that don't know what they're doing. Those numbers that I just mentioned that don't bring in enough money. Well, they've got to do tooling and manufacturing, and they've got to get enough money net out of the crowdfunding that they can spend money on their business. And if they're not, they're going to do stupid things, not raise enough money. And then I've seen some of these crowdfunding guys close down in the middle of their crowdfunding because they didn't raise enough money to pay for the things they needed to do. So that's important that you don't let that happen also.
Yeah. And so an advisory board, not just with crowdfunding, but with any startup, right, can be helpful, I guess, to help you build credibility and legitimacy.
It helps you build credibility. And also sometimes the people that join your advisory board, they may have an influence with other people so that, they joined the board and now their people are coming to the site. But the other thing, I've seen some very powerful, like, for example, Bo Jackson is one of the greatest athletes. For those that follow Bo Jackson, he played football for the Raiders. He played baseball. He's one of the few players. I think he's the only player that made the Pro Bowl in both baseball and football. But do you know who's on his board? The owner of the Oakland Raiders, and now it's the Las Vegas Raiders, but that's Mark Davis. Okay, so Al Davis was his father. Al was the original owner of the Raiders. Now Mark, the son, is the owner of the Raiders, and Mark is on Bo Jackson's board. I'm on Bo Jackson's board, so I'm hanging out with the owner of the Raiders on board calls now, and also getting, not only is he validating Bo, but there's other relationships that get validated across the board there also. So
Right.
think about that. If you, as an entrepreneur, have a unique skill, you can be an advisor, sit on boards, but also make some really good connections on those boards at the same time.
Yeah, yeah. Uh, Boards are a great way to meet people. I even encourage my students to do volunteer boards, because those could be really allow them to meet people they never could otherwise, just by
Yes.
doing some community work.
And I say trade your brand for equity, trade your skill set for equity, because when you sit on a board, if it's public, you should get a couple shares of stock or some options, right? And those can end up being very lucrative if the company is successful. So if you're part of helping make the company successful and the stock rises and you get a chance to sell some stock, then that's where it all makes sense financially to be a board member.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So let's talk. Let's get back to we talked about digital marketing a little bit. Well, we have a lot, but let's get back to a little bit of the basics of understanding where to start for the startup. I know having a strong, well, you have to first understand who your customer is, right? So you can
Right.
figure out how to find them. But just going out and finding a few influencers doesn't really get it. There's a strategy, I'm sure, involved. And today there's so many different places. You can have your email list, you can have Instagram, you mentioned TikTok, LinkedIn. There's all kinds of ways, YouTube, having
Yes.
your own podcast. So how do you recommend somebody who's sitting there, with a brand new business? They got a lot to do. They're trying to decide, where to put their money and their time,
Yeah.
their limited
It's a great
resources. How do you
question.
get started?
I'm gonna give you an example of some folks that we worked with. So this husband and wife team, they were both lawyers, and they worked for the insurance company side of the transaction. So you see, the people get in an accident, and they have a lawyer that says, "Let me help you get some money." That's the personal injury side. On the insurance side, the lawyers have to write the checks to the people that got injured. So they were writing, approving check after check, hundreds of millions of dollars, and they're seeing these other lawyers getting a percentage of all that, making huge money. So they said, we want to be on that side, get away from the insurance side, right? So they started their own law firm, and they thought, oh, we've got all this experience as insurance people, and we know how this goes. We're going to crush it. And so they started running some ads. And guess what? They got no response. It was like nothing, because this is the problem. In the world of digital, it's all about how much have you populated out there in the marketplace. So, because there's like, why are we getting no response? Because people would go online because people don't just call a phone number anymore today. Typically, they want to review who it is. They want to see, what do these people have to say? Let's go to their website. Oh, there's no videos. We shot 100 videos for these folks over the course of 60 days. And it was all about why they are better than the average lawyer, because they've got that experience, and we shot testimonials, people that they've helped, et cetera, et cetera. But once all of this was out there, we started populating them on TikTok and Facebook and Instagram, also LinkedIn, big time success on LinkedIn. And so in the beginning, they'd spend 10,000 on ads, and they would get one or two calls. Now on 10,000 in ads, they would get enough calls to generate immediately 50,000 in revenue, 5 times the money they spent. And then they had all the leads, and these folks have virtually crushed it since they launched this business now, by creating the content, creating the branding, and the things that we've been talking about here, Rebecca, that, digital funnels. Okay. It's, a digital funnel is is different than just telling someone, call this number. Because if you give someone a phone number to call, if they leave their information, you get it. If they don't, they hang up, you're done. In a digital funnel, when they hit that funnel, you can capture the IP address of the people coming in. And now, instead of, if you only had the phone calls and you got maybe 10 phone numbers from people, you might have 1,000 digital IP addresses because of all the people that came to the website. So now you're building on that, and this is called ClickFunnels. It's kind of hard to describe it here over a podcast, but all I can tell you is it's powerful, it works, and it involves having to create content before you start driving people into the funnel, because the digital funnel starts at the top and it has people doing things through the process, showing that they're interested, until at the very bottom, then it spits out a good lead and somebody that's waiting to hear back from somebody at the company. So digital works, and ClickFunnels is one of the systems that we use. That's an off-the-shelf kind of thing you can actually utilize. And there's a book called ClickFunnels that the guy that started it all created a very powerful program.
Yeah. Yeah. So if I'm understanding you correctly, just to get started, it kind of goes back to what we started talking about. You have to get out there and build your brand, don't you?
Yes.
You have to get out there and get onto YouTube. And you mentioned videos specifically. But that, podcasts or videos or audio, but video seems to have a special power, I
Yes.
think. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, video. I mean, let's think about it this way. If you were going to go on QVC or HSN, you couldn't do it with just audio. I mean, it'd be pretty tough to sell products. A juicer with Jack LaLanne without video, right? But the point is that that video allows for magical transformation, which is one of the things that I look for. It also allows for you to build the credibility of the people that are involved by showing them, here's the person, they've written books and they've been on podcasts and they're an expert in certain areas, and here they are speaking on stage, right? And so I believe video is the most powerful form of helping build the brand. And at the same time, I would say this: when somebody can show a before and after in what I call a magical transformation, this is what Tony Little did. This is what Suzanne Summers did with Thigh Master. You name the product. Proactive skincare. It was a lot of acne and then clear skin. So video is powerful, and I think as a branding piece for experts, it also shows credibility. And by the way, when you write a book, for example, think of it, it creates an authority position for you. And let me let you understand the word authority. Do you know what word exists in the word authority? Author.
Author. Yeah.
When you are an author, you become an authority, and that's how it works. And so it for many people out there. And like I said, these two lawyers, husband and wife, they had great credibility working for the insurance company, but they had no credibility working for the personal injury side until they were able to get those videos out there and produce them so that people could see who they were, what their message was. And also it gives people a chance to say, you know what? I like the way they talk. I want to work with that person or that husband and wife team. They're good people.
Yeah, you brought up the word magical transformation. I was going to ask you to define it, which you did already. So, what I'm hearing too is storytelling.
Yes.
Because, that And you have to understand who your audience is, right? Because the insurance, there was a different story that they told to the insurance companies than
Absolutely.
to the clients on the other side. So
Yes.
again, I think it goes, you've got to figure out who that audience is, that customer. Then you've got to create a story, and then you've got to build your brand and get that story out there to them. And
And it,
I,
positioning yourself uniquely in the marketplace, right? That, I say uniquely, and this is the way to analyze unique positioning. Does your product or service, that it is, does your product or service have a benefit and or a solution to a problem that there is no solution to the problem in a similar fashion, right? So does your product or service solve a problem in a fashion such that there's no other product or service already solving that problem in a similar fashion, right? And if you can do that with you as what you provide as a service, that's even more powerful if that is that unique that nobody else is already able to provide it in a similar fashion.
yeah, yeah. I think that's really powerful stuff. And I think it's hard sometimes for a new business founder to sort of recognize this. So I'm so glad we're talking about it. Because when you're trying to launch a company, the last thing on your mind sometimes is, I've got to go out and create a bunch of YouTube videos and start a podcast, but that's so critical and so important.
I
It,
mean, I got to tell you, I was on um, the the Adam Carolla, the Love Doctor. He had me on to do a podcast for this book, and he said, Kevin, he says, I have tens of millions of downloads, and he said, and I said, well, look, I asked one thing: can we launch this book, the podcast, the week that the book launches? And he said, Kevin, I need this content that we're shooting right now for next week, this week, next week, but I'll do one better. The week that your book launches, we'll do another podcast and we'll launch that simultaneous to your book launch to tens of millions of people, and that is going to be powerful. Well, I had over 150 podcasts that aired all in a 7-day window of when this book was launching, because we'd shot some 3 months before, 2 months before, 1 month before, and the week of. And it just was, we were selling tens of thousands of books a day in the beginning. And that's what ratcheted it up to the #2 bestseller on the Wall Street Journal list.
yeah,
So
yeah, yeah.
we had just so much fun doing that. But podcasts are powerful.
Yeah. And
And by the
that,
way, one last thing I want to
no, go
mention
ahead.
on that note. We live in Tampa, and last week I got a phone call from Gail Gallardo. She's on Bloom on the NBC station here in town, and she said, Kevin, I'd love to interview you. We're talking about entrepreneurship, and I normally charge people because they pay to get on, because they pay to build their brand, but I'd love to have you on free of charge if you want to do it. So I did a 20-minute segment with Gail Gallardo last week on NBC, and my phones have been blowing up ever since. And so these kinds of opportunities are available to the entrepreneurs that are listening to us right now, certainly in Tampa. There's 3 shows that do what Gail does on the Bloom Network, where you can kind of buy your way on the show for cheap, like for pennies. And so, and you might have enough credibility to be on there without paying a dime also. That's something I can help people navigate also.
Yeah, yeah. Mentor to Millions. That's the book. So everybody needs to get that book and give it a try. I love the title too.
Thank you.
You've mentored millions of people, and you help many, many, many of those people reach millions. So you're a great role model. So I
Okay.
just have, I know we're getting short on time, but I just have to ask you about how, how should somebody go about evaluating where they're investing their time in these digital tools and techniques? I mean, obviously one way is, are you selling the product, right?
Right.
but I'm assuming that you've got, you've got methods and maybe a metrics board and
Yeah.
key performance
So
indicators.
I'm gonna walk you through a quick exercise. Here's a little product that we did. This gentleman came to us. He had built his sales, did about $1 million, and then it was on the backside, bell-shaped curve. Because this product is an eyeglass cleaning product, and it gets rid of all the dust, and then that goes in, and then it opens up, and it's a double-sided carbon cleaning system, cleans both sides of your glasses simultaneously, and so you brush them clean first, then pull that back, then clean them both sides, and then this goes in and gets cleaned itself. Now, this product sells for $15, but in the world of digital, it was costing us about $18 to get a customer. So we weren't, he wasn't making any money. He did $1 million in sales because he's selling something for 15, it's costing him 18. He's like, I can't do this forever. I said, okay, but this is the focus now. The focus is to increase the average order value of the product, meaning, okay, people that wear glasses, they need one by their nightstand, by their bed, one by their TV stand in the living room, one in their car, one in the kitchen. If you buy 2 of these, we're going to give you 2 absolutely free. But now you see how we're upping the average order value. So we ended up getting to this to where, okay, if you buy 3 of these, we're going to give you 2 for free. You get 5 for the price of 3. The average order value was now $50 some, and we were spending $18 to get the customer. And now we were able to sell 10,000 of these a day. We took this company from $1 million to $150 million because we focused on the average order value. And this is the concept in digital marketing. You've got your acquisition cost to the customer, and then you got the average order value that you're bringing in the lifetime of that customer. So focus on reducing the acquisition cost as a percentage of the total sale, because when you were spending $18 to get $15, it was 100% or more. When we're spending $18 to get $55, now we were making money and we generated 150 million in sales. And by the way, we were using affiliates to do this, etc. So the world, and we tried this on TV, as seen on TV, it was costing us $50 to get a customer. Wow. So digital was much cheaper, and then we were increasing the average order value. So we created a very successful project by focusing on those 2 costs.
Yeah, that there's a great lesson in there. Sometimes we always go automatically to how are we going to reduce cost, and the other we forget to look at the flip side of it. And
increase
so that's
the revenue.
Brilliant. I love it. So Kevin, this has been amazing. I'd love to talk more. I know we could, but I also know you've got a lot to do. I just have to ask you, what's exciting you most right now? Like, it doesn't have to be a product,
Yeah.
but what are you working on that's exciting you the most?
We're working on, we're doing some AI stuff right now. We also, there's a TV show called Wicked Tuna that is on the National Geographic, and we're involved with that brand and launching some products under the Wicked Tuna umbrella. So that, there's food, and that we're in 200 military bases right now selling Wicked Tuna to the military folks. And so, I love products, and I love marketing, and I love customer acquisition. We're doing all of that in many different areas, but this taking a TV show that's branded, and Walt Disney owns the Wicked Tuna TV show. It's the #1 show on National Geographic, but they haven't utilized the brand of Wicked Tuna. And so this is sort of a theme, I think, in the early days of, I saw all this airtime that wasn't being utilized, underutilized airtime, we filled it. Now, Wicked Tuna, underutilized branding, we're filling it. And so this is kind of one of my themes that I've utilized. And Wicked Tuna, you're going to see it. We launch in Walmart the end of February, and we're already in the military bases. So lots of good stuff going on there. Never a dull moment. in my world, because we see new things every day, and we invest in some of these across the board. So, Rebecca, thank you for having me. It's a pleasure, and I know you see a lot of entrepreneurs there at the University of Tampa and the CEO group that you've got, and just want to thank you for being there for so many entrepreneurs out there in the marketplace and in doing what you do. It's awesome.
It's wonderful to have you, Kevin. If I could ask you, what would be your one piece of advice right now, today,
Last
for
piece of
somebody
advice I
starting
have.
out?
So if you're an entrepreneur, do not be afraid to go get somebody that you can be an advisor to you. Don't be afraid to give them a little piece of equity if you need to, because if you're doing something 100% all on your own, all by yourself, and you've never done it before, you might make a lot of mistakes. So don't do that. Get a mentor, get an advisor or a small partner that's been there and done it. And if you got to give them 1% of the company and you still have 99%, hey, go build $100 million business that puts a lot of money in your pocket. So don't be afraid to get great advisors. And by the way, people approach me and they think, can I get the shark to be part of my group? Well, sometimes I do. So don't be afraid. All right.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. We got to take risks, right?
That's
What
right.
I always love about you, Kevin, you're always learning, always doing something new. We're going to have you back on the show. We got a lot more to talk about next time,
Fantastic.
AI and all that fun stuff. But
Good.
thank you. Where can
Awesome.
everybody find out more about you and your books and
Oh,
anything else they
very
might like?
simple. Just go to kevinharrington.tv. T as in Tom, V as in Victor, like television. kevinharrington.tv. That's my website. There's some free downloads, and you get all kinds of great stuff there too. So it's great being with you, and I'll see you soon.
Thank you, Kevin.
Okay, bye-bye. Take care.
Bye.